What if I told you that U.S. Marshals just seized financial records connected to the highest level of America's judiciary? Sworn testimony, emergency court orders, allegations of undisclosed financial ties. This isn't politics. This could be a constitutional earthquake. And what investigators are uncovering right now may change everything. 24 hours ago, something happened that could change the course of American institutional history. U.S. Marshals, federal law enforcement officers who act only under court authority, executed coordinated seizure orders across multiple locations. They didn't just collect paperwork. They secured financial records, bank statements, digital communications, property documents, travel logs, and business agreements. Entire categories of evidence were taken into federal custody. This action was not political theater. It was triggered by sworn testimony entered into a sealed federal proceeding. Testimony described by legal observers as detailed, specific, and deeply consequential. Within hours of that testimony being entered into the court record, a federal judge authorized enforcement action. That speed matters. According to legal experts, seizure orders of this scale require probable cause, the legal standard that evidence of potential violations exists and must be preserved. Judges do not authorize such measures casually. When they do, it signals that the court believes the matter demands immediate protection of records. At the center of this unfolding situation are long-standing concerns surrounding financial disclosure obligations under the Ethics in Government Act of 1978. Under federal law, high-ranking officials, including Supreme Court justices, must file annual financial disclosure reports. These reports require transparency about gifts over a certain value, outside income, real estate transactions, travel paid for by third parties, and other financial relationships that could present conflicts of interest. These rules exist for one reason: public trust. For several years, investigative journalists and ethics watchdog groups have reported on undisclosed luxury travel, private jet trips, real estate transactions, and financial relationships involving members of the Supreme Court. These reports were based on flight logs, property records, tax documents, and disclosure filings. The issue wasn't rumor, it was documentation. The controversy intensified when questions arose about whether certain benefits were properly reported and whether disclosure requirements had been fully met. Critics argue that unlike lower federal judges, Supreme Court justices historically have not been subject to a formally enforceable ethics code with an independent review mechanism. Instead, the system has largely relied on self-reporting. Now, sworn testimony reportedly presented detailed timelines, specific dollar amounts, names of involved individuals, and communications discussing disclosure obligations. If accurate, such evidence could raise serious legal questions, not merely ethical ones. Under federal statute, knowingly falsifying or omitting required information on documents mandated by law can carry criminal penalties. At this stage, no charges have been filed. However, the court's authorization of seizure orders suggests investigators believe further review of documentary evidence is necessary.
So, what exactly was seized? Based on partially unsealed court information, authorities secured financial records going back years, including investment accounts and tax documentation. They collected electronic communications, emails, text messages, encrypted messaging applications, along with travel documentation, flight manifests, event records, and business contracts. This level of review signals a comprehensive audit process. Federal investigators, forensic accountants, and attorneys are now analyzing the material. They will compare seized records with publicly filed disclosure forms, looking for discrepancies or omissions. They will build timelines and assess whether federal reporting standards were met. The implications extend beyond individuals. If evidence ultimately shows undisclosed financial relationships tied to cases before the court, it could prompt broader institutional reform. Legal scholars have long debated whether the Supreme Court should adopt a binding code of conduct with independent enforcement. This case may accelerate that conversation. Public confidence in the judiciary depends on transparency and accountability. The Supreme Court interprets constitutional rights, shapes federal policy, and resolves disputes that affect every American. When questions arise about ethics compliance at that level, scrutiny is inevitable. It's important to emphasize, Allegations are not findings. Testimony is not a verdict. The investigation is ongoing, and all individuals involved retain the presumption of innocence until and unless proven otherwise in court. But what is undeniable is this: the machinery of federal review has been activated. A district court judge determined that the evidence presented warranted immediate preservation of records. U.S. Marshals carried out lawful orders, and now investigators are reviewing what could become one of the most consequential judicial oversight examinations in modern history. This is not about partisanship. It is about whether the rule of law applies equally at every level of government. The coming weeks will likely bring preliminary findings, legal challenges to the seizures, and possibly evidentiary hearings. Whatever the outcome, the central question remains the same. Are America's highest institutions fully accountable under the same laws they enforce? That answer may soon become clearer.
As this investigation moves forward, the stakes could not be higher. Federal investigators are now reviewing thousands of documents: financial disclosures, private communications, travel records, contracts, and tax filings. Every transaction will be examined, every timeline will be reconstructed, every reported disclosure will be compared against what was actually received. If discrepancies are confirmed, the legal consequences could extend far beyond ethics reform. Civil penalties, referrals for further investigation, and potential congressional action are all possibilities, depending on what the evidence ultimately shows. But just as important as the legal outcome is the institutional impact. The Supreme Court stands as the final authority on constitutional rights in the United States. It decides cases that shape free speech, voting access, executive power, corporate regulation, and civil liberties. Public trust in that institution is essential. Without trust, the legitimacy of its rulings begins to erode. This moment is bigger than any single justice, any single allegation, or any single political debate. It is about accountability at the highest level of government. It is about whether transparency laws apply equally to everyone, regardless of title, status, or influence. History has shown that American institutions are strongest when they are tested, examined, and when necessary, reformed. From Watergate to past judicial resignations, accountability has always been uncomfortable but necessary. Right now, we're watching that process unfold in real time. There will be legal challenges, there will be motions filed, there may be hearings that reveal even more details, and as records continue to be reviewed, the public will begin to see whether the sworn testimony aligns with documented evidence. One thing is certain: this story is far from over. The next phase will determine whether this becomes a turning point for judicial ethics reform or another chapter in a long debate about oversight and power in Washington. If you care about transparency, accountability, and the rule of law, stay informed. These developments will move quickly, and every filing could shift the direction of the case. Subscribe to World Dark Files and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. We'll continue breaking down every major court development, every verified document release, and every confirmed legal action as this investigation progresses. Share this report with others who believe that no institution should be beyond scrutiny. Because in the end, the strength of a democracy isn't measured by power, it's measured by accountability.